Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, and I am so excited to introduce you to Shemane Nugent, who we've been talking a long time about getting together, and I'm just so thrilled that we can have a little sit down. Now, I heard her be described by her adoring husband, Ted, as the queen of truth, logic, and common sense.
I like that.
I did
like
too.
that.
I heard you on a Facebook Live, and I said, I'm going to write that down. And she has also got her own podcast here at Rogue Media, and it is just a delight to get to visit with you. You have led such an interesting life, but our commonality is you were a radio gal, worked in a radio station doing news.
In 1980. A long time ago. That was my first job doing the weekend news programs, 8 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, because nobody wanted those time slots in college. Everybody was out partying. And so
I always worked the bad shifts.
Yeah. And that's what I really wanted to step into that. And I was working my way there. I graduated from Wayne State University in Detroit with a degree in radio, TV, and film. My first job was in radio at a rock and roll radio station in Detroit. And I thought, okay, well, that'll be a stepping stone to TV. And then I met Ted. And I was the traffic reporter for a rock and roll radio station there. And he came in and filled in for the morning crew for an entire week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he wasn't just a guest on a show.
No, for a week he hosted. And when you're with somebody for 4 hours a day, for 5 days, you get to know him.
Yeah.
And especially in radio, your job is to talk. So I got to learn a lot about him, that he didn't drink and smoke. He was a family man. And, you know, there wasn't a comment that you could bring up that he didn't have a way to respond to it, whether it was witty or funny or serious. He was very, very smart and intelligent, still is. And so here I am, 33 years later.
So was it a whirlwind romance?
Oh, we met October 3rd, 1988.
Yeah.
We got engaged. Our first date was November 7th, a month later.
Mm-hmm. Where was it? Where'd you go?
Well, we went to Las Vegas.
Okay.
We went to the Sugar Ray Leonard, Donnie Lalonde fight in Las Vegas.
Really? Yeah.
And I mean, we went to a couple of lunches here and there and that kind of thing. And he brought his kids. Like, I said no to go to, I'm not going to go to Las Vegas with a rock star. And I said no. And it was interesting. He said, my kids are going. Oh. And I went, okay.
This should be safe.
I'll go.
Yeah.
This should be safe. Yeah, I'll go. So that was our first real date. And then we got engaged a month later at our office Christmas party and got married a month after that. So, and Ann, I wasn't even a rock and roll fan. I didn't know when I met him, I didn't know any of his music, which was probably a good thing.
Maybe it was a good thing. Some of the backstory, yeah. Well, what a dynamic individual he is.
Yeah.
And very passionate about his beliefs and doesn't take anything off anybody, seems like.
He is very passionate about so much.
But kind, too. I mean, he doesn't say, I haven't heard, some of the mean things. He's kind of responded. I know he had to respond to. Here we are talking a lot about Ted. We're going to get him on this podcast.
We are.
But he's a fascinating fellow. Yeah. I know your marriage has just been really lots of fun in a lot of ways, but there's been a lot of really tough times too. And not marriage-wise, but because of situations. Let's talk about your sick house and what you were going through when you were so very ill and nobody really knew what was wrong.
Yeah, about 20 years ago, our home that was featured on MTV Cribs was contaminated with toxic mold between the walls. We never saw anything. We just kept getting sicker and sicker. And this was back around the year 2000, 2002. Nobody could help me with debilitating migraines. I went to dozens of different doctors. Like Ted went on his rock and roll tour. I went on the doctor tour. Oh. And it got to the point, Ann, where I got so sick I could barely walk up a flight of stairs. And I ended up having pre-emphysema. And I ended up becoming my own investigative sleuth. And honestly, I think that's why I'm here right now, because I had to fight for my life and for my family's life. My husband got sick, and so did our son. And when your kids are sick,
You'll do anything you
yeah.
can.
So I cured us. Well, we're not completely cured. We never get completely cured of mold illness because there's so many other things that come up, like multiple chemical sensitivity. But I used alternative therapies, or what they call functional medicine, like vitamin IVs, oxygen, and infrared sauna. I was doing that 20 years ago.
Wow. And they're just based on research that you were doing.
Yeah. I knew that I had two choices. I could go to the Mayo Clinic, right, and they would probably, I asked what the protocol was, and they would, well, this drug for that, which the drugs will just cover the problem.
Right.
The problem's still there. So really part of the reason that we're here in Texas is I found the Environmental Health Center in Dallas, and I went there for almost a month, and Dr. Ray saved my life with, again, alternative remedies and old school stuff. His goal was to get you off of the medication. So basically these therapies that I was doing, even juicing and completely changing my diet, was detoxing me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is a holistic approach. Mm-hmm. You have to take to that, address the issue. I know you say you had extreme fatigue.
Headaches, joint pain,
aches,
insomnia. I literally, Ted and I couldn't sleep for a couple of years. Literally, we would lay there for 8 hours or 6 or whatever, and just get up, and when you have a bad night's sleep, you laid down,
right?
But the lights weren't completely out.
No,
you didn't get that good
sleep,
REM
right.
sleep. And we realized that when we traveled, in fact, we were in London. And we both, which is a rainy city, you know, mm-hmm. and you think, wow, there's mold there.
Should be mold, yeah.
We slept great. And when we got home, we couldn't sleep again. And we had temporary, loss of memory. Like I would back then we had the portable telephones. I would put the phone in the refrigerator, and Ted put the milk in the cupboard, and just
really just
little
like mental
things.
Total lapses.
Yes, just little things that it wasn't like, okay, you break your leg and I really have to go to the emergency room. Right. They were just little things that caused you to doubt your sanity, and also to doubt, your health. Like I remember I've been teaching group fitness since 1980, and my son had a day where the parents could come into school and show what they did. Mm-hmm. So I was going to teach my son's whole class about health and fitness, and I was going to do a little workout with them. And I did. Well, 5 minutes into the class, I felt like there was an elephant sitting on my chest. I couldn't breathe.
And like heart attack.
Yeah.
City,
and so it was little things like that you would make excuses for. Well, maybe you're stressed, or maybe you just didn't have a good night's sleep, or whatever. But I did enough research and to find out that, it was really our house that was killing us.
So how did you finally just pull a board off the wall and go, there's mold? Or how did you find that out?
Well, we did find it about a year before. We were doing some remodeling, and the contractor pulled up the carpet and looked at the subfloor and said, wow, this is full of mold. We need to repair it. And I said, absolutely, of course. Yeah. So we repaired it, had the house tested. And again, this was back in around the year 2001. And I was still getting the migraines after we repaired it. And the testing company there in Jackson, Michigan, it's a very, very small town.
Yeah.
Not Jackson, we were actually outside of Jackson. And there wasn't, they didn't have the tools or the technique or the education to learn how to test for mold that they do now. And they said, no, we didn't find any mold. Sorry for your problem. And I had it tested twice. And they still said there wasn't anything, but I still kept getting the symptoms. The problem was, and we find this all too often with builders, they didn't install the flashing properly around the house. So that indication of just pulling up the carpeting was one small piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. The mold had gotten through the air duct system and all throughout the house. So by the time
tiny spores, it makes sense that it would just be everywhere.
One mold spore is 1/100th the size of human hair, and its natural defense mechanism is to propagate 1 million times like a dead dandelion. So by that time, it was too far gone.
Yeah. In fact, your house, at that point, it's like, we've just got to get out of here. So you decided to move to Texas. When? What year was it?
2003.
2003.
Yeah.
I think it was not too long. I mean, after you moved here, that I met you both, and you were doing a lot of the Zumba. Let's talk about the Zumba, because everybody's heard it. Go ahead and explain what Zumba is, in case there's somebody that doesn't know.
So Zumba is a dance fitness workout, and in my classes, I have a heavy emphasis on fitness because I like to get a great workout. But honestly, Zumba was the first thing that I stopped teaching when I was recovering and at the Environmental Health Center. And after we moved here to Texas, there was a 2-year period that went by that I didn't teach anymore. I was just trying to survive.
Right.
And Ted was on tour, and we were in Las Vegas, and I took a fitness class at a 24-hour gym. And I'm like, dance, fitness, okay, I'm going to try it. And I realized the whole time I was just smiling. And I came back and I said, Ted, I'm coming out of retirement and I'm going to teach Zumba. So I brought Zumba back. I started teaching at the Y here in Central Texas. And then I ended up, Zumba found out about me, Curves found out about me, and I ended up developing a program for both Zumba and Curves. And I got to pinch myself, Ann, but I traveled all over the world teaching this program. Australia, London, Paris, almost every state, Canada, and I just got goosebumps. Like,
that is so amazing.
It was such a blessing.
Yeah,
such a blessing.
Yeah, we were talking about, the stories I'd love to highlight here on the podcast are people who, see a need and say, yes, I'll do what it takes. And then it grows into this amazing thing. Did you ever dream,
No, and then
be at this point,
the funniest thing, so I started teaching Zumba about 10 years ago, so when I was around 50, and I remember I was practicing my Zumba moves in front of the mirror.
There's a lot of shimmying and shaking.
And so my husband, actually it was when I was 48, my husband was walking by, and we had been married 20-some years by that time. He was walking by my little area where I was choreographing my routines, and he said, do you want to come up on stage and dance at one of my concerts? And I went, do you know what?
He's never asked you to do that?
No. And at 48 years old, Ann, had I not gotten sick, I think I would have said, nobody's going to want to see me dance on stage at 48 years old. But because I got sick, I went, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I started dancing at his concerts. And we were in the Swedish Music Festival. Billy Idol was there. All kinds of, big celebrity music acts were there. And I danced in front of 60,000 people at almost 50 years old. So, yeah, I just feel blessed.
Well, I mean, you are such an amazing example of health and fitness. And then to think about what you went through to get to this point and how much you learned. Of course, as a nation, we've gone through COVID. And I was just thinking about that on the way over. What did we do right in addressing that, and what do you think we did wrong?
Oh, boy.
And have y'all gone through the whole COVID thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, the good news is this has caused people to second guess their health and not take advantage of their health, and really to think about what they're doing, what they're putting in their body, and maybe exercising more. And I think that's a good thing. I'm saddened that the CDC, NIH, and nobody else really promoted taking vitamins and getting good old-fashioned vitamin D from the sun, working outdoors. You talked about gardening. How good is that for the mind, body, and spirit, So I think this is a good, well, it's not a good thing. A lot of people lost their lives, and our worlds have been turned upside down, no question. But I think what we got right is that now we're focusing on our health more.
Oh, I think really you're right about that, and the fact that people also kind of just reevaluated what they were doing with their free time and all that. That when we were kind of shut down, and that was a big shock, I think, to the America that we knew.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to go down this rabbit hole, I think it was a good thing because parents now started to see what their kids were learning or not learning at school.
Right.
And through the Zoom, everybody knows what a Zoom is now.
That is for sure. And that has been a great thing.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. I think, some of my ladies' organizations and stuff that people are all over the state, you can really get a lot of work done with that. And we never had heard of, Zoom.
Right.
But yeah, so that's one plus, I
Yep.
think. But, and then a lot of folks, I really like meeting in person. I think there's something about being able to interact with folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, churches, organizations, and so forth. I think there's been a kind of a shift, though,
Yeah, absolutely.
with how people are prioritizing some of those things.
I agree. And it's like I said, I think there are parts of it that were a good thing. Parts of it were very bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to hear more about Wildly Well, which is
Okay.
your brand. So we're going to talk more about wellness when we come back.
Hey y'all, I'm April,
Hi, I'm Caroline.
and we have a new podcast for you. What's it called, Caroline?
Bloody Happy Hour.
It's going to be your new favorite guilty pleasure. We're going to talk about some bloody stuff. Serial killers, true crime,
Rape.
rapists. Why not join us? We'll have a good time.
You literally never know. I don't know what I'm going to say. Bloody Happy Hour. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
Hi, this is Sarah,
And I'm Carter.
and this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and
vinyl.
So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
And we're back with Shemane Nugent, and you are just such a dynamic individual. You do so many things. I said, being around you is like drinking from a fire hose when I think about all the things you do. But I mean, you're a blogger, you're a podcast host as well. Tell me about your podcast.
Well, I just started doing audio only podcasts because back in the day, 5 years ago, podcasts used to be just audio only, but then really now that's more people are doing more video and audio only. So I've been doing videos. Actually, Ted and I have had, I think you know this, we've had our own TV show on Outdoor Channel for 30 years.
Right.
So I've still been in the game, so to speak, and doing things like that and posting on social media. But you know what? I feel, Anne, like time is of the essence, and I really feel God speaking to me, and that, our job is to share the gospel and to help other people and encourage other people. And so I do these programs like Wildly Well to help. It's kind of like a private coaching group, a little community where we talk about faith. We talk about health, number one, for sure. Well, faith is number one, but health and also our mindset. Because, I've worked with a lot of people over my 40-year plus career in the health and fitness industry. People could look amazing and be in excellent shape, but they're not happy.
No.
And so we address that issue as well. And faith is a big part of that. So that's the Wildly Well community that I do.
Yeah, and so you have your latest book is 4 Minutes to Happy. You kind of got a little 4 minutes thing going. There was another book about 4 minutes.
Well,
something about rock music.
Yes, what happened was the 4 Minutes to Happy is the second edition of the 4 Minutes a Day Rock and Roll Your Way to Happy.
Rock and roll your way to happy.
How that happened is I wanted to write about my story about how I got sick and almost died from toxic mold, but life got in the way. Yeah. And I thought, I kept writing. Literally one night I went to bed, said my prayers, woke up the next morning, like literally my hands are like this. I'm old fashioned like that. And before I even opened my eyes, I had this message that I should write this book, 4 Minutes a Day, Rock and Roll Your Way to Happy. So it wouldn't just be about toxic mold. It would be about little things that people can do to change their lives in just a few minutes a day. Because getting started is tough.
Yeah. So give me an example.
So 4 minutes, let's say you want to learn a new language. And who has time to go through months and months?
Yeah.
You start with 4 minutes, Anne. And you put it on your calendar. But here's the dirty little secret. 4 minutes turns into 10 or 20 or 30. And the same thing with exercise or making great meals or at least better meals or preparing meals. And there's so many things. So in my books, I have written about the little things, 60 things that you can do to change your life in just 4 minutes a day.
That's remarkable. I mean, it almost is like an inspiration, a divine inspiration you had for this.
It absolutely was. Yeah. And I felt like literally I wrote the book in 3 days. I told my husband, I'm going to write this book. And I think that's part of it too, announcing that you're going to do something and sharing that. And it feels like it's a message from God.
So how can folks get the book?
It's on Amazon
Okay.
and Barnes & Noble. Yep.
Yeah, if you Google your name, all kinds of things come up, but especially the Wildly Well. So, I mean, that is, it's kind of a brand. How did you come up with I love the way Ted puts words together.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think anybody does it better.
No,
he is a wordsmith.
He is.
On the fly.
Yes, he is.
But you as well, and the whole wildly part kind of makes me think of the outdoors and hunting. And so that's still a very big part of your life, right?
Yeah, it is. And honestly, now more than ever, I'm proud to be a hunter and proud to live off the land. We don't have to worry about the cost of meat at the grocery store, which I understand is exorbitant. So it's a very different lifestyle, and I kind of shied away from posting things on social media about that. But now I'm really proud to bring home the bacon, so to speak, and be able to fry it up in the pan and to live off the land. And I think there are a growing population, a growing number of people who want to garden and learn how to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, I have your book, Kill It and Grill It.
Great.
Do you have a favorite recipe from that?
In
or
that
experience from that?
In that book, the Coca-Cola stew, and I got that recipe when we were in Africa. And what they did was they took this big squash. It was like a white squash, huge thing. And they cut out all the seeds and everything. And they filled it up with cream, Coca-Cola.
Oh, my goodness.
And put the meat in there, potatoes and carrots and things like that. Put the top back on it. Tinfoil on it, and literally covered it into the ground where there were ashes underneath it. So it was slowly cooking the whole day. Yeah. And
oh my word,
the Coca-Cola tenderized the meat and sweetened it, of course. And I think it's partially being in Africa as well. Yeah. How do you go wrong?
Yeah, well, you've had the opportunity to travel the world. As you say, do you have like a favorite destination?
Oh, well, Africa is one. London, I gotta love London. Paris. In so many states, so many different states. I love meeting people and just being able to try different food. But Paris, London, Australia, Sydney, Australia was great too.
I've never been to Australia, but watch a lot of TV shows from there. And yeah, it's a beautiful country. You're from Michigan, though. Has it been a big shift to get used to Texas? Michigan's pretty different climate-wise.
It is, but honestly, when I got sick, I couldn't take the winters anymore. And I've always dreaded. It's 5 months of seeing gray skies and cold. And honestly, I don't mind the summers here.
Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time, all day outside, so I don't have to deal with that. We have the luxury of having air conditioning, but I like it. I love Texas.
Yeah, I'd rather be hot than cold.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I don't know if it's a function of age or what, but I am a Texas girl through and through. You have had quite a charmed life in a way, or at least seems so to those of us looking from the outside, because you just kind of grabbed life by the horns, as it were, no matter what you were dealt, and figured it out.
Well, I think that's what women do, don't we?
I
We do.
think so, yeah.
No matter where we're dropped, and especially when you have a family and you have kids, you just try to make things work. And I also, I think the hunting lifestyle has really caused me to think that way too, because I've met a lot of famous people, a lot of a lot of celebrities and politicians and President Trump.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I think the hunting aspect of our lives bring us down to earth, because for my husband anyway, the deer don't care that he's a rock star. There's no special treatment. So there's no red carpet or anything. We have to work hard at that. And it's humbling. And I think that's really important,
I watched a Facebook Live. I honestly, I do not stalk you, but when your lives pop up, they pop up on my feed. And it was one evening not too long ago, and there were some deer coming to your feeder. Yeah, and you were talking so quietly, and I thought, so I was trying to be, I don't want to disturb the deer, but they were so cute, and I thought, oh man, you're providing some sustenance for them.
Well, we do have a feeder right behind our house. It's about 50 yards away, and I shoot a bow and arrow, so it's not within my range. But we do like to see them first thing in the morning and last thing before we go to bed.
Yeah.
And I get silly sometimes on my podcasts and on my Instagram. I do dancing videos and things like that. But I was doing the Elmer Fudd, be very, very quiet.
Right. Very, very quiet.
As if everybody watching wasn't quiet. I've had people say that too. They were like, oh, what's going on? But it was interesting because I just wanted to share it. There were 2 black buck antelope that were fighting each other.
Really?
And they lock horns and
it's
life.
Well, it is, and you really have a beautiful location, and your views there of Central Texas. I think I did post on that. Central Texas is the best. I mean, it really is a beautiful life that you've carved out. And I like to spend the last few minutes asking you some questions. It's a questionnaire similar to the one that the late, great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actors Studio.
Okay.
So it's my take on it. What is your favorite word?
Faith. That's first thing that popped into my mind.
Mm-hmm. What is your least favorite word?
Oh, the one that starts with an F and ends with a K.
Me too. And it's becoming so much more common on TV shows and stuff.
And my husband swears. I have sworn a time or two before, but
just that
just
word.
Like that word.
Yeah.
I just would like to hear less of that.
Yeah. I'm with you there. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Teaching my fitness classes. I mean, when I'm in front of these smiling, beaming faces, they're literally smiling back at me. We're sweating, we're working, we're dancing, we're having fun. There are men and women and all ages and all. It buoys my soul. Mm-hmm. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Well, then what turns you off, conversely?
Negativity, people who really try to push your buttons and just try to be the negative Nancy's, or Debbie Downers,
Yeah, right. What sound do you love the most?
My dogs.
Really? I noticed you identify yourself as a mom, a wife, and a dog mom.
Yeah, my dogs. I love, You know, we have a daughter, Sadie. She's one of our Labradors, and we call her.
Labs
she's
are wonderful dogs. So.
She's got severe hip dysplasia, so whenever I hear her whining, I literally, it's like having a child. You're out of, you know, and is she okay?
Yeah,
you know, what can I do?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you. She is wrapped around Ted's little finger like there is no tomorrow. I mean, that is his little girl.
Yeah. Well, I lost my place here.
Okay.
Let's see. Where are you? What is your least favorite sound? Here we go. We were on sound.
Oh, I would just say an ambulance. You know, sound of an
Yeah.
ambulance. I always, you know, say a prayer for if there's an ambulance going by. So.
Yeah, right. What other profession would you like to have tried?
You know, that's a tough one because I think throughout my life, there were times when I wanted to do different things, maybe wanted to be the next Diane Sawyer or that type of thing. And now I look at, there is no way I would have given up being a mom, being a stay-at-home mom. So I, you know, now I think God has put me here for a reason. And it's not like I planned on being married to a rock star. I didn't even listen to rock and roll music
Right.
or being known as the mold lady.
Yeah.
But if God's put me here for a reason, then maybe I can help people. And that's all I want to do. That really, I feel that's our mission is in life, is to find the thing that makes your heart sing and then share it with other people.
Yeah, well, I know you have helped people. What do you know you would not want to do professionally, though?
Probably be a skydiver or firefighter or something.
Yeah, a first responder of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe something like
Siren,
that.
you know, like
yeah,
those.
I don't like the sirens, yeah.
All right, finally, what do you want to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well done, good and faithful servant. That's all you know, people say, what do you want? You know, what do you want to do in life? What do you want? That's what I want. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. I mean, opinions I've learned to grow thicker skin. I've been banned on Twitter for having a pro-Trump tweet.
Uh-oh.
And, you know, there are haters. I've had death threats. But that is the most important thing that keeps me going, that I want to do. And we all make mistakes, and I do too. Sometimes on a daily basis, I'm like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? But I feel so grateful that God has given me this opportunity, health-wise especially. I'm so grateful for my health. And that's the look I'm going for, is to have God say, well done, good and faithful servant.
Well, you are doing it well. Shemane, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And we're going to get Uncle Ted here.
We
got
are.
to get him here because, he's just loads of fun. I love to hear from him, too. I have to ask him these same questions. But
Good.
don't tell him.
I won't tell him.
Don't tell
I will
him.
not tell him.
It's great being with you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.